I'm Dr. Sharon Schutz, and I'm here with Rob Rosenberger.
Hi.
Correct?
Correct.
All right, Rob Rosenberger. He is running for Congress for the 17th district, and we're going to answer some questions today. Questions that I have, because in Trinity County we've been moved from the district we were in to the 17th district, and there's a lot of issues and questions that I'm sure many of you have. So today I want to just welcome you, Rob.
Thank you.
And I'm really enjoying visiting with you, and I'm looking forward to a little bit of education here.
Thank you.
One of the things is you showed me a map, and if you give me that map, I'll put it up, and we'll have it down in the corner so that people can see it, and that way, and they can click a link to it and whatever.
Absolutely.
So you can describe it and whatever. I think it was very, very educational.
Thank you.
So, tell us about your family and about Rob.
Okay, so I was born in Lufkin. I was raised on a ranch in Wells, Texas. It was a very small community, about halfway between Lufkin and Nacogdoches. My dad was originally from Nacogdoches. My family has been in the Nacogdoches area since the 1800s. So I grew up in the East Texas culture, the East Texas patriotism, and Christians. I grew up in Wells until I got to high school. And at high school, I actually moved to Nacogdoches to live with my grandparents to graduate high school there. And the reason was I really wanted to go to Texas A&M, and the small school in Wells didn't have the right classes for the minimum requirements, so I had to decide. So I still worked on the ranch with my family, working hard, but I actually had graduated high school in Nacogdoches. I went from there. I did what I wanted to do. I got to go to Texas A&M. I was in the Corps of Cadets, and I ended up after the Navy, or after the Texas A&M, I went to join the Navy. I flew top secret reconnaissance missions during the first Gulf War. I returned to Texas A&M after the Navy and after the Gulf War, and I completed more degrees. And so I have multiple degrees from A&M. And from the campus of Texas A&M, I was recruited by the CIA. So I moved to Virginia, to Langley, so that I could serve for the CIA. And then I spent staying in that community, in the intelligence community, for a long time, and the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. I spent my career serving either in the government or in the military until this past year. Because of COVID turned I became a business owner 7 years ago. I quit all service and I created my own consulting firm in the federal contracting space where I was advising. COVID made my business virtual. Since I love Texas, I relocated back to Texas just to live, and then I was flying back and forth to visit with clients each month as necessary. And I thought, that's great. I've got the best of both worlds. I get to live in Texas where I'm happy, and I can work in D.C. where my clients are. So that said, then the election comes up, and I've decided to run.
So what made you decide to run?
I saw a need. So we talked about the map, which we can kind of harbor back to or link back to, but the dynamics of the redistricting, which occurs every 10 years. So in 2020 was the consensus or the census year, and so in 2021, last October, it was decided that the Nacogdoches County, Angelina County, Trinity County, Walker County, these counties are now part of a new district that they weren't previously parts of. So for example, Trinity County was previously District 8.
Right.
And Kevin Brady is who everyone's familiar with. Well, now Trinity County is part of District 17. And District 17 already had a congressman named Congressman Pete Sessions.
Right.
Mr. Sessions has been in Congress since 1996. So a lot of the counties that are now in this new District 17, they're unfamiliar with not only their territory, where do they vote, but they're also unfamiliar with who their current elected representatives are. Right. And then in those things, I saw a need with how that particular person was conducting themselves, and I saw that my district could be served by someone who was would do things differently.
Right. You know, and anybody that pays attention to politics and you know is involved in the political process, you can look at the cities, and you can see that in most cases, a large city can overpower the rural communities. And you showed me on this map, you showed me that District 17 is part of Walker County. it's Trinity County, and it's all these places that have all, have been under the other. How does the cities, because you got Nacogdoches and, and whatever, how does that compare with Waco and as far as the size and the power there?
Great question. So, a little bit of background before I can answer that. So it's a great question, and it's very relevant in this race, and I hope every voter knows that. So in this district, 17, there are technically 14 counties, 4 of which are partial counties, and then 10 are full counties. So the partial counties include Travis County and North Austin. There's about 69,000 people just in that little piece of Travis County, the north tip of Austin, in this district. And then it includes a portion of Williamson County, which is just north of Travis. Mm-hmm. And there's another large, tens of thousands of people. And then it goes all up into McLennan County, and it includes all of Waco. But then the district goes eastward all the way to Lufkin and Nacogdoches and those counties, Angelina and Nacogdoches, and Trinity County, and Houston County for Crockett. So the dynamics are, to tie that back to, what does this mean now? Historically, all the little communities and towns in the districts of Nacogdoches County, Nacogdoches, Angelina County, Lufkin, and then Trinity County, you've got Trinity, and you've got the cities here, and Houston County, you've got Crockett. Those little communities, when they were in their other districts, they were kind of in the same size and scale and speed, and they had sort of a familiarity and similarity with other communities in their districts. In this particular case, Waco is sort of the 800-pound gorilla.
Right.
And what does that mean? Because Waco resides almost within one county alone, what that means is proportionally the amount of voters in one county out of 14 has a mathematical advantage. So whoever that county votes for potentially could definitely sway or influence the outcome.
Right.
So what does that mean for if you're in one of those outer counties? All of those counties basically have to rally, if you will, to vote for who they want. Now, if they want to vote for whoever McLennan County votes for, that's up to them. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. If you were to combine, if my math is right, if you were to combine Lufkin, the city, Nacogdoches, the city, Crockett, the city, Huntsville, the city, Trinity, the city, if we were to add all those up, we still don't have one Waco. So all those cities are in different counties. So we need all those counties to show up for the vote if they want to influence the outcome to the way they want. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, McLennan County will probably get to choose. Again, the incumbent is from Waco, so maybe that's what the district will end up with. But the dynamics is one Waco being so in scale significantly outsized. Right. They have an advantage to choose the outcome.
Mm-hmm. I've seen maps where large cities, they're all blue, and then the rural community, and in reality, that's why it's so important that that we get out and get the vote.
Absolutely.
And, you hear that all the time: get the vote, get the vote, get the vote. But the truth is, we have to vote. We have to, and I'm concerned about the fact that we have so many running for that office. When you have an incumbent, if you don't have an incumbent, or if the incumbent is, it's more of a fair advantage, as far as. But in this case, it's definitely going to be a struggle for us if we don't get out there and vote.
And when you say vote, there's two sides of voting in terms of 2 dates. There's the primary, which is in March 1st.
Right.
That determines which candidate is for each party.
Right.
So in this case, I'm running for the Republican nominee in March 1st primary, which requires a vote.
Right.
Then in November, that one candidate will then go forward. So a lot of the voters I've spoken with have this misconception that they can just wait till November to vote for the Republican candidate. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, is that really the Republican candidate that you wanted in the first place?
Exactly.
That's why we have the primaries.
Yeah, primaries are very important. Until I got really involved in here at Trinity County the last few years, I didn't realize, and I was very careless about it. I didn't vote in the primaries because I didn't realize the importance. But the thing is, when you have 3 people running for an office and you do have an incumbent, whether the incumbent's good or not, that's not an issue.
Right.
But you have somebody that you want out of office and you want somebody else in office. That's where they come to the top. Yes, the primaries, when they we vote for that. We're going to vote for the Republican ticket, and we're going to vote for the people, the person, the one man or woman who we want to hold that office.
Correct.
And then in November, we're going to vote for whether it's the Democrat or the Republican who will get the office.
That's the way it historically happens. And so I believe in this case, why am I running for the Republican nomination? I see a need. I think this district can be better served than how it's been served. I think I have things that I can bring that I believe the other candidates do not. Now,
Right.
The incumbent is the incumbent, has 25 years in Congress. I don't have 25 years in Congress. As a matter of fact, I've never been elected to any public office and didn't think I would ever run. It was only because I'm so passionate about serving my country.
Yeah.
I've spent my career serving, and I'm so passionate about Texas and my district that I'm from. I'm from this district. This is home. These are my people.
Right.
This is family, and we've been here for many generations before me, and I hope many generations after. I think our district in Washington deserves better, especially now. So I'll give you an anecdote. I don't know if it's relevant, but I'll give you my perspective, what prompted me to have the motivation.
Okay.
One of which is I look at how Congress has changed our lives and our lifestyles from my core values, my Christianity, my faith, which bathroom I can go to, how many feet apart I'm required to stand apart from people whether I want to or not.
Right.
Whether businesses are allowed to be open or restaurants curbside only because the government makes them. I have been uncomfortable with a lot of things that have been
yes.
pushed down from an overreaching government that is out of control. That is, we don't work for them, but they've lost their minds that they think we do.
Right.
And it's become sort of expected. And then the liberal agenda, in my opinion, is sort of, if they don't get what they want, they bully. They kind of throw their weight around, they tantrum,
Oh, yeah.
they riot, they do whatever they can, right? You look at the examples of Spotify. If they don't like
Yes.
somebody they don't even listen to, they go, well, then I'm going to revolt to make Spotify comply with me. The same thing plays out in scale in D.C. So here's an issue that concerned me personally. So right now, as I understand it, 28 members of Congress, being congressional members or Senate, 28 Democrats are currently incumbents that are not running for re-election. Now, when I say that out loud, the first response I typically receive is, oh good, that's great. We've got 28 Democrats not going to run for re-election. I actually see another layer between that, and I discussed this with one of our nation's leaders recently. I'm not going to announce his name because I didn't ask permission, but one of our nation's leaders who you see on TV frequently, I discussed this with him just actually a week ago. And he actually brought up a salient point that I hadn't considered, and here it is. He said the fundamental sort of the traditional Democrat that holds the office now, where they kind of, how they grew up, their legacy, what they've been
Yes.
familiar with, what kind of Democrat were they in Congress? They are now not going to be reelected because they're not running. So that means other Democrats from those Democrat communities will be running. And what we've seen is sort of a consistent theme, is they're most commonly socialist-minded
Right.
people. So in the event that these Democrat-held districts and portions of America re-elect new Democrats,
Right.
they're going to be more socialist than before.
Yes.
That's a problem. And we need good leadership and a backbone in Congress. We need people that are representing their districts, which I felt like this district has not been as represented as well. But I think, in my personal views, somebody has to be able to be effective in Congress, not just storming a barn door, not having this bravado, I'm a tough guy and I'm going to be tough for you too. Every politician can say that.
Oh, yeah.
That's not going to work in Congress. You may get elected, but you won't be effective. The district needs someone that represents them and carries their core ideals and their value systems, but can be effective.
Right.
And that's the difference with me. I've worked in my lifetime in the military, in the government. I even worked on the Hill as a special advisor to Congressman Louis Gohmert from the District 1. I was his advisor for 15 months. He recruited me, I took the job, I was part of his senior staff, and I learned a lot.
Right.
But I've learned also that in Congress, you get so much of a pushback and so much of a process, bureaucracy, sound bites. They're all sound bites. They all look good in front of a camera, and they sound good on Facebook. But at the end of the day, they're not getting the job done, which is taking care of their districts or their veterans or their people or the people that are hurting or the unemployment, the inflation. These real problems that we're dealing with in mainstream America, those politicians are not getting the job done. So I have a concern that a bravado or even someone that we champion as a popular person, if we send them on our behalf, they have to be effective. I have the background, the training, the experience, and the relationships already built that can be effective.
Yeah. Speaking of sound bites, there's a sound bite that we hear all the time. I'll reach across the aisle. I'll reach across the aisle. What does that mean? And how do you reach across the aisle with socialists who are determined to destroy what we built and not compromise? How is that done?
So it's interesting you bring that up. I believe, on that same subject, there is a temperament, there's a culture, there's also a demeanor that a representative has to have. Mm-hmm. And one of which is they have to be fixed on what is the goal. We have to know where our boundaries lie. Mm-hmm. What can I collaborate or compromise on, and where I cannot.
Right.
And that has to be clear. Mm-hmm. And that's where we have the old term flip-flopping. Well, you said it this way once, and you said it that way again. Mm-hmm. Flip-flopping obviously discredits you. That weakens your ability to actually be believable or trustworthy. So in this case, how do we kind of reach across the aisle? With all due respect, it has to be done. But I believe that we have reached such a toxic state of polarized affairs, there is an us and there's a them, that it comes back down to relationships and collaboration. How well can you work with someone, even that someone you don't agree with? You have very fundamental disagreements. But that's not the point. You're professional. You are hired or elected to get a job done on behalf of the people. And you have to find a way to do that. You can't, if you will, fall on your sword all the time. And I believe too many have this aspiration. We don't like D.C. D.C. is messed up. D.C. is in it for themselves. And I get all that. Frankly, I probably have chanted that myself. And I've complained on Facebook about things I didn't like just as much as the next guy. And it's actually me getting off Facebook and stepping into this race to say I would be one that would be responsible for and accountable to the people to actually figure out a way to find compromise, to find collaboration on things that matter, but also not give away my core values, what I represent, why I was sent, who sent me. Mm-hmm. This is not about me. I did not see myself voting or running for election. I have a personal business that I keep running. I thought that was going to be my path. But now I'm running because I believe, to your point, reaching across the aisle may sound good. But then there's also the litmus test of did you do it? And were you effective? And I believe my background, being in not only in the government, in the military, working with, I was part of CIA. So you may already know that from my background. I was in the CIA. And my job, I was trained by the CIA to be an expert negotiator. So I actually went through a special program. There were a few of us that were selected, and my expertise was in contracts negotiations and procurements. So part of my job for the majority of my tenure in the CIA was I negotiated with foreign countries on behalf of the United States intelligence community. Well, we don't have, as a country, we don't have a lot of things in common with those nations, but we have mutual interests in certain things. Mm-hmm. So we had to, and I was sent on behalf of the U.S. intelligence community, a CIA person who traveled outside this nation for many years. I was never home, but I was trained in how to negotiate and how to get the right outcome. I believe those skill sets are still relevant to this, and I believe those skill sets qualify me differently than my opponents because the CIA put so much training in me. Right. In fact, I finished 4 master's degrees in business on top of my undergrads, all in business, and then I became a business owner. And I assure you, if you want to run a business, you have to compromise and collaborate, or you don't have a successful business. Yeah. And those are my backgrounds and the things that I would do to reach across the aisle.
Yeah, I just know that many of the Democrats like we said, many of them are socialist, and they're becoming more so. And of course, we know where socialist slides into worse things. Yeah. But the thing is, there's so many that are committed and dedicated and would give their life for what they believe.
Yes.
And what they're doing in Congress, and they're destroying the underpinnings of our nation.
They are.
And I really struggle with how anybody can go to Washington and stop that, and get people to work together. Because the thing is, now it used to be that everybody, they might not agree, but they still loved America.
Correct.
People don't love America anymore.
Socialists actually find fault with America.
Exactly.
They actually think our flag represents oppression, not freedom. There has been a transformation. I mean, Obama said he wanted to fundamentally transform America, and I say we have to give him credit. He started this initiative and this movement that I don't stand for. It's everything I don't stand for. And I don't believe every American that has served this nation stood for that either. And so I'm standing up, even with my own life. I'm volunteering to go back into service for this district because I feel like who we send to Congress, forgive me to sound cliche, but it matters more and more as we progress.
Right.
I believe, as you say, the polarization of issues is becoming more prevalent, it's more noticeable, and at the end of the day, how effective is Congress in terms of the quality of the lives of our people? I would argue it's not very good right now in terms of what it could be.
Right.
So I still have faith in America. I'm passionate. I believe this is the greatest country in the world, and trust me, I've been to a lot of countries. I've never met another America. They're all subsequent to this, and they're great, but they're no USA. This is the only one, and we have to protect it, and our core values that made it so great in the first place. So in this case, to your point, they are committed to their cause, and I respect that to a point, but not when it counters what I believe we have to stand tall for, and frankly say the things that are uncomfortable. So for example, someone feels it's their right, that they have the right to burn the flag. Well, it's my right to get angry if you do, because that's very offensive to me. As a matter of fact, I served in the military, and I know a number of people, and it's just in my small circles, who didn't make it home. I personally had 3 employees that didn't make it home. So I'm very familiar with what it means to sort of serve with that passion, that ultimate commitment. I get it, and I respect it up to a point. But how do we counter that in Congress? Well, one, we don't back down to the bullies, to the political correctness, to some of the watering down of our Christian values that the Congress has been kind of doing, if you will, the slippery slope over time. I would say those that we've been sending have not been defending us as well as probably needed. So they gave in to a little bit too much, and then they gave in a little bit too much again, and then too much again. And then that sort of gives momentum to the opposite side, where it now becomes very difficult to sort of confront that without that bravado, without that sort of intensity. I have that capability, but I also know I have to be effective.
Before we close, you told me a while ago that you got engaged recently.
Recently.
Tell me about it, and tell me about your family.
Oh, well, I have 4 daughters. I'm very lucky. And so I met my first wife. We were married for just 1 month short of 30 years. We met as students at Texas A&M, and we ended up with 4 daughters. My ex-wife, we're good friends. We get along great. So she still works for the government, and I ended up when I moved out, I was able to relocate to Texas, as I mentioned. So living alone, new life, kind of rediscovering what it's like to sort of not be in full-time married. Although I see my kids very frequently. I was single, and I didn't really know much about that. So I bumped into an old high school classmate on Facebook, which started the talking. She was going through a divorce after 28 years herself. One thing leads to another. A year and a half later, I proposed to her. And so that was last month.
Well, that's nice. I just want to say thank you for coming in, and I think you pretty much answered most of my questions, and I think you did a very good job of it.
Thank you.
And I don't know who's going to win this race, but I do know that it's going to be an interesting race.
Well, it will be, and I entrust the people of the district to choose who they want if they get up and vote.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
coming
ma'am. I
in.
appreciate it. Thanks for having me.